All right, so in this video, I'm going to share with you 6 basic things that you can start doing now to get on the road to building a more solid foundation. And just from the start, it's important to have the right mindset and understand that it's a work in progress. And I don't mean that in kind of the cliche, like, oh, we're all works in progress and we're imperfect and we can't have any opinions and we can't have discernment. I don't really mean that kind of common misunderstanding. I mean the obvious, practical, pragmatic thing in that it was years of choices and behaviors and actions that got you to where you are today. And likewise, to go in a different direction to arrive at a different place, it's going to take different behaviors, choices, and actions. So it's just simple, practical stuff. And some things can resolve in the short term. You can find real immediate benefit, real immediate relief, sometimes from very simple, benign things. And sometimes things take a little bit longer to resolve. So it's important to understand that and try to be kind and gentle on yourself while also being firm, while also being a bit authoritarian, even though people don't really like that word, even though having a bit of submission to what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, so that you can have some dedication, have some discipline regarding that. Again, kind of traits that are, for some reason, not very popular in modern times, but are absolutely necessary and critical for being an adult, basically. So the first and one of the most important things that someone can do, obviously depending on budget, depending on resources, is neurofeedback. And if you don't know what neurofeedback is, I'm not going to explain it, but in a nutshell, this is something that can allow your brain to actually recorrect, to actually recalibrate, so that issues that we were dealing with can go away completely. Not learn to cope with them, not learn to live with them, not intellectually understand them, not emotionally cry about them or whatever, but genuinely and legitimately just resolve and go away to where you just forget about them and don't remember them. And you just kind of more or less can be a new person. So there's a lot of variety. There's a whole world there. So what I've done is I've just put a link below to the system that I use and have used and I've seen the best results with from the ton of research that I did on it. And basically I put a link to the person that helped me either rent a system, buy a system, or find a practitioner locally, as well as answer any questions that I had in the process. So her name is Angela. Her email is linked in the description and her phone number is in there as well. You can text her or call or email her and let her know that I sent you or you found out about this video, and she can answer your questions or tell you whatever you want to know about it. But the system itself is called Neurooptimal. So it's neuro and optimal, Neurooptimal. And basically it's what I found to be the most effective system with the least amount of side effects and also the most cost effective and easiest to use. So it kind of just checks all the boxes. And I'm not going to get into what it's done for me, but it's been quite beneficial and useful. So if you have the budget, if you are dealing with mental, emotional things or psychological issues, then I think this is honestly one of the best things, if not the best thing, because it can actually give your brain the feedback to correct itself. So I'll just leave it at that. And then the second thing is developing a basic sense of integrity. If you don't know what that word means, I recommend doing research, watching YouTube videos about it, reading books, or maybe not a whole book, but just reading some stuff online to try to get an idea and get your mind thinking about what this concept is and what it actually means. And then basically saying what you mean, meaning what you say, doing what you say you're going to do. And if you're not going to do it, then don't say you're going to do it. And if you're not going to do it, then tell them you're not going to do it. And I think this is a really important skill. Really stupid, really obvious, but is really missing in a lot of times. And just a lot of basic human interactions go south because of this simple thing. People don't say what they mean. They don't really mean what they say. And a lot of our life is, a lot of social interactions are kind of on this superficial way, which is okay for that context, but how you're actually going to live your life, I don't think that's a great way to go about it. And the next thing is to find some way to face adversity and challenge yourself on a regular basis. So it could be some kind of sports, some kind of like mixed martial arts or like kickboxing class. Not saying you have to like fight or spar, because that's a whole different level, which, if you're just starting out, that could be too much, or depending on where you are, that could be really useful and appropriate. But even just doing a basic class for beginners that's going to push you mentally and physically, it's very useful. Could also just be exercise, whether it's swimming or running or riding a bike or whatever, just basic forms of exercise that you find challenging. Also, it could just be learning a new skill, to play an instrument or write it or learn a new language, or something that basically puts you at square one and makes you face adversity and challenge yourself and really look at your character. Could also be, for some people, just being more social, talking to strangers, making eye contact when you speak to people, making small talk with cashiers. It could be something as basic and simple as that. But the thing is really basic, simple things stack up over time, rather than doing one huge thing. Like a lot of people I think would rather take like a mass dose of LSD, and they think it's going to like fix all their problems, than they would just doing like really simple, stupid, free, cheap, easy things on a regular basis that will likely have a much greater impact without the expense and the negative consequences that come from many of the other cheap shortcuts that people try to take, and they end up oftentimes becoming worse off because of it. And the next thing is there's a borderline personality workbook by this guy, Dr. Daniel Fox. And I've also linking his book, and I'm linking his YouTube channel in the whatever description, whatever it's called. But basically, I think in terms of the therapy industry and kind of self-help, his stuff's actually very useful, very practical, very straightforward, and I think he's one of the good ones, quote unquote. And if you're someone that struggles with that, or developing like basic identity, emotional regulation kind of things, it's a workbook. He has a lot of videos that can really help and be useful. And if you really need it, then definitely working with a skilled practitioner can be very useful. Doing things like DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, and CBT, which I think is cognitive behavioral therapy, doing those kinds of things can be very useful. I think talk therapy is kind of not that useful in a lot of instances, because it's like, do you want to understand why there's a 200-pound weight on your foot, or do you want the weight removed? I would say you probably want to know to remove the weight. And I think oftentimes people get too good at thinking about their problem and thinking that is a solution, or analyze it from 100 different angles, from 100 different contexts, thinking that's a solution, but it isn't. A solution is a solution. And obviously, yes, there's some understanding that can come about, but if you work with someone that's actually good, you can really bypass a lot of that wasted time, energy, effort, money, whatever, because you can't get those things back. I mean, you get the money back, but your time and your life you can't get back. Next thing is learn to communicate. I don't mean become an expert speaker or become a master of language, but just in the most basic, fundamental ways. And again, you can go on YouTube, find a basic course, look online, find a basic course, go on Skillshare, find a basic course there, or read the old kind of cliche book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is kind of cheesy and gimmicky, but it's at least like a starting place. And at least just learning that basic skill to be able to articulate your thoughts and your words and your feelings will be incredibly useful, incredibly valuable. And the next thing is learn to listen and actually hear what other people are saying. Not what you imagine they are saying, or hope they are saying, or assume that they mean, but what they are actually meaning and implying, and what they're actually communicating. And again, it's a skill. It's something some people will have innately, some people don't. Some people struggle with it, some people it comes more naturally. For a lot of people these days, I think communication is not that easy, and understanding other people is even less easy. But if you don't understand yourself at all, and if you don't have personal integrity and you can't communicate, then your ability to hear and listen and understand other people is probably going to be proportionally diminished. So I would say that's a really important thing to do. And how do you do it? That's a little tricky. You just kind of have to do it and try it and fail and reflect and try again and fail and reflect, and kind of just develop that innate thing, because you are a human talking to another human. It's not that foreign. It's a pretty familiar thing at the end of the day. Even though it might feel alien at times, it's actually a familiar experience that we should we should be able to do fairly easily. And the last thing is to get your life organized. Develop a normal routine of going to bed and waking up at normal times, normal hours, not staying up super late, not sleeping in super late. We're going to bed, waking up at normal times, eating meals at regular times, eating regular meals at regular times every day, exercising regularly, developing those basic rhythms, those basic foundations, and getting organized for a lot of people is incredibly powerful and incredibly useful. And I can't tell you how befuddled people are when I started talking about this, probably in 2017. They're just like, oh my God, I can't do that. It sounds so hard. I'm like, what? But then people would ask, oh, I have all these spiritual issues and all my energies are messed up and all my chakras are out of whack and these channels are blocked and I have these childhood traumas and I have these autoimmune conditions and digestive orders and all these like laundry list of things. And I'm like, cool, well, when do you go to bed? Oh, I don't know, like 2 a.m., 4 a.m. I just wake up whenever. Maybe I don't eat till in the evening, but I have all this stress and anxiety and I can't focus. I feel ungrounded. It's like, well, I mean, I can almost bet that if you would just develop basic routines in these functions, then many of the other spiritual issues and energetic imbalances and channel blockages and past life traumas and intergenerational healing and all this other complicated word salad kind of like mental masturbation stuff that people get into would more or less mostly resolve. Because people are doing everything in the world to make it complicated rather than taking any degree of personal responsibility, personal accountability to develop the most basic, fundamental, boring, mundane, but yet important and profound aspects of life. Being organized, having a normal routine, being able to communicate, being able to actually listen, doing what or saying what they are going, or doing what they say and saying what they're going to do, and then saying what they mean and meaning what they say. These basic things are, for whatever reason, extremely lost and extremely challenging for a lot of people. I mean, I can understand. I've been there earlier in my life, and I can tell you from personal experience, everything I'm telling you, more or less, I've found to be incredibly useful, incredibly beneficial for myself, and just looking back at human history, like, oh, these are things that most people have done and had in place, and things that solid, secure, stable people tend to have in place as well. So hopefully that's helpful, hopefully that's useful, and feel free to post some questions in the comments if you need any other recommendations or have any further requests for videos.